He ruled Chicago with fear, and no one could stop him. Al Capone, one of the most dangerous men in American history, but he wasn't born a king. He was just a boy from Brooklyn, born in 1899 to immigrant parents. Life was not easy. Poverty surrounded him, crime was everywhere. And from a young age, he learned one thing: respect is taken, not given. He didn't stay in school. He chose the streets, gangs, violence, power. That was his world. And he was good at it, very good. But New York was only the beginning, because soon he would move to Chicago, a city that would make him a legend. Chicago was different, more dangerous, more violent, more ambitious. When Al Capone arrived, he was not alone. He followed a man who would change his life. Johnny Torrio, a mentor, a strategist, a businessman in a criminal world. Torrio saw something in Capone, not just strength, not just aggression, but potential. Under Torrio, Capone learned the system, not just crime, but organization, how to control territory, how to manage people, how to build power. At that time, America was under prohibition. Alcohol was illegal, but demand never stopped. And where there is demand, there is money, huge money. Torrio and Capone built an empire. Illegal alcohol became their gold. Speakeasies, smuggling routes, distribution networks, everything connected, everything controlled. And Capone was rising fast. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was becoming a leader, a face, a force. But Chicago was not empty. Other gangs wanted the same power, the same money, the same control. And that meant one thing: war. The streets became violent. Shootings, ambushes, revenge. Every move, and I could be your last. But Capone didn't back down. He pushed forward, more aggressive, more fearless, more dangerous. His name spread. People feared him, and that fear gave him power. But then, everything changed. Johnny Torrio was attacked, shot multiple times, left barely alive. He survived, but he was done. He stepped away, and just like that, the empire was left to Capone, a young man, now in control of everything. Chicago was his, the money was his, the power was his, and he was ready to take it even further. Power changes everything. After Torrio stepped away, Al Capone took control. Chicago was his, not just the streets, but the system. He didn't just run a gang, he ran an empire. Speakeasies, hidden bars across the city, illegal alcohol flowing every night, money flowing even faster, millions of dollars every year. And Capone was at the center of it all. He built networks, suppliers, distributors, enforcers, every piece connected, every move controlled. But Capone was different. He didn't hide. He lived openly. Luxury suits, expensive cars, public appearances. He smiled for the cameras, shook hands, gave money to the poor. To some, he was a criminal. To others, he was a hero, a man who gave back, a man who helped people. But behind that image was something else: violence, control, fear, because power is never peaceful. Rival gangs wanted his empire, they wanted his money, and they were ready to fight. The city became a battlefield. Gunfire in the streets, cars chasing cars, men disappearing overnight, and at the center of it all, Capone. Then came the moment that shocked the world: the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. 7 men lined up and executed. Cold, precise, brutal. Chicago was terrified. The message was clear. This was not just crime, this was domination. And Capone was untouchable, or so it seemed, because the more power he gained, the more attention he attracted. The government was watching, the public was watching, and the pressure was building. Capone had everything: money, power, fear, control. But something was coming, something he couldn't control, and it would change everything. Power never lasts forever. At the height of his empire, Al Capone seemed untouchable. He controlled Chicago, he controlled the streets, he controlled the money. But there was one thing he could not control: the law. The government had seen enough. Violence, corruption, fear. It had to end. But taking Capone down was not easy. He was protected, careful, surrounded by loyal men. There was no direct evidence, no easy way in. So the government changed its strategy. They didn't go after the violence. They went after the money, taxes, paper, numbers, small details. That could destroy a giant. A group of investigators worked in silence, carefully building a case, tracking income, following transactions, looking for anything. That didn't add up, and eventually, they found it: tax evasion. Capone had made millions, but he hadn't paid. That was enough. In 1931, the trial began. Capone walked into the courtroom, confident, calm. He believed he would win, just like always. But this time, he was wrong. The evidence was clear. The numbers didn't lie. The system he built couldn't protect him anymore. The verdict came: guilty. The sentence: 11 years in prison. The most powerful man in Chicago was now just a prisoner. At first, even prison didn't seem real. He still had influence, still had connections, still had power. But that didn't last, because then he was sent somewhere else. Alcatraz, the most secure prison in America. No connections, no control, no power, just walls, silence, and time. Years passed, slowly, painfully, and something else began to happen. Capone was changing, not stronger, not smarter, weaker, sick. The man who once controlled a city could barely control himself. His mind faded, his power disappeared, his empire was gone. After years in prison, he was released, but he was no longer the same man. He returned to Florida, far from Chicago, far from power. He spent his final years in silence. And then, in 1947, it ended. Al Capone died, not in a war, not in power, but alone. The legend was over, but his story remained. A rise built on fear, a fall built on truth. Al Capone, the man who had everything and lost it all.